Hi everyone, I wanted to put together this video just to help ease some anxiety. I've had a little bit of anxiety and I'm sure that all of you probably feeling a little bit too. So I wanted to call in my resident wife slash science nerd to give us some advice. And I thought I had some good questions for her this morning, so I wanted to share those. And like I said, just hopefully to help decrease some anxiety that we have out there. But one of the things that I asked her about was there was a report that a Boston area pharmaceutical company had a meeting and like 26 out of 28 people tested positive for the COVID-19 virus. So I was asking her how that could happen if the virus doesn't travel airborne, and I just wanted to have Elizabeth explain a little bit between the difference between airborne and the other way you can catch.
Yeah. So just to let everyone know, I'm a nurse, so that's my medical background. So in the medical field, we describe how microbes can be carried and passed from one person to another. Airborne is a classification of this type of passing of organisms, and that's an organism that tends to travel this way is tuberculosis. So it's generally spores that live in the air. They can pass between people that share close quarters for a long period of time. We don't think that the COVID-19 is actually SARS-CoV-2 is the name of the microbe itself, passes this way. It's actually, we think it passes through droplet and contact. And droplet is a way of passing microbes through your oral, nasal secretions, any bodily fluids. They generally enter the air when you cough or sneeze, or if you touch your face and get secretions on your hands, then you can pass that on to non-living objects like desks and pens and doorknobs. That would be passing things through contact. And then droplet, when things are aerosolized in the air, they hang out for a period of time and then they fall to the ground, and then they can colonize surfaces again. So in the example of this meeting, we had many people that tested positive after being together. That could mean that transmission happened there if people weren't paying close attention to what they were touching and how they were sharing their bodily fluids with each other, which you think like they're not making out with each other, how do they get it? But think about every time that you touch your face. You have the possibility of passing oral or nasal secretions onto your hands, and then if you don't immediately wash your hands, you can pass that off to other non-living things in your environment.
Like a pen.
A pen, desks, handles, doorknobs. That's why a lot of germaphobes don't like touching anything like doorknobs in public, right? But it could also pass from person to person. So I'm like meeting a new person at a professional conference, I'm going to shake their hand, right? And I've certainly noticed in the medical community, we're all kind of late to get rid of handshaking, even though we know that this could be passed that way because we all feel like, oh yeah, we wash our hands, we're really good about it. But unless you're really super cognizant of what you're doing, you could easily pass it on to somebody else.
Okay. And that's why this is probably spreading so quickly.
Yeah, and the other thing that we had talked about earlier is that this is a novel virus to us. People, I know you've heard that a lot in the news. That means that none of us have any natural immunity to it. It's like nothing our bodies have seen before. So unlike other coronaviruses that cause common colds, our defenses are completely susceptible to this. So even a small amount of virus getting into our system can cause infection. It can duplicate rapidly and cause us to have symptoms or not have symptoms, but then go on to pass the virus to other people.
And that's why, because we talked about like how basically the reason to slow this down is so that we have time to work on vaccines for this. And I had asked if a vaccine would help, like, you know, in the case of the flu shot, like does a vaccine actually help you get rid of the flu, or does it help decrease symptoms? And will a vaccine decrease symptoms of this thing, or will it hopefully get rid of it?
We don't have a vaccine yet. Some ways that vaccines can work is they either take the microbe itself and they severely weaken it and then infect you with the weakened version. That gives you immunity because you create antibodies to that specific organism so that when you meet it in the future, it can't pass your defenses. The reason why flu vaccines don't work perfectly every year is because there's a whole mix of flu bugs that can make us sick, and it's impossible to know what will be the variant that is most popular in the coming flu season. So people that make vaccines they make the best possible guess, and they include multiple variants into the vaccine, but they can't always account for everything. So it gives us partial immunity to the flu of that season. With the COVID-19 virus, they can make a vaccine for that specific strain, but that doesn't mean, like, viruses tend to mutate over time, as they pass from host to host. That doesn't mean that the next season that vaccine will work for that specific variant of the COVID-19 or the SARS-CoV-2 virus.
Cool. And then, and I had asked, so if one way for humans to build immunity to this is for people to actually get this virus, so I asked, like, does it make sense to get, for some, like, healthy people to actually get this virus so that we can start to build immunity, like, as the human population continues?
Yeah.
And
I think it's a great question. I mean, eventually all of us will be exposed to this at the rate that it's going. And for most of us, that won't mean, like, a serious setback. Like, we might have a pretty, kind of nasty case of pneumonia. But for most of us, won't die or need hospitalization if we're fairly young and healthy and active and don't have any other comorbidities or any other illnesses that can weaken our immune system. The reason why it's so important to contain it right now is because that, approximately maybe 3%, in Italy it's 6%. This fatality rate might go down over time as we understand it better. But the number of people that are dying from this disease have no way that they can build up immunity. So having healthy people build up immunity is not going to help them now. We're trying to stop the spread of this disease so that it gives us some time to come up with a vaccine, help these people that are most at risk from dying, and as well, really importantly, decrease the stress on our hospital system, because we only have so many ICU beds, we only have so many ventilators. If everyone gets sick at once, we can't possibly help everyone. So we want to try to contain it as much as we possibly can. If this were a disease where, people didn't get sick and die, then it would there'd be no reason for this precaution. We might as well just all get it and get immunity over time. But because it is so severe for certain parts of our population, we really want to try to limit it as much as we can.
Okay, thank you. And then I had a question that I didn't ask earlier, but I'll ask her now. Like, what's the population of people that seem to be spreading this the most? Does anybody know?
It's hard to say because we actually don't know how many cases we have.
Okay.
I mean, especially here in the United States, we're not doing universal testing, which, makes me think, like, a lot of epidemiologists, just by following the cases and the outbreaks, think that, a very large portion of our population has already been exposed, but it's kind of impossible to know. When you have community cases that pop up when there's no connection between two people that have the virus, obviously they've gotten it from intermediary people that have passed it amongst themselves. I think the most insidious or dangerous spread is from people that otherwise seem healthy and don't think that they're sick, or maybe have really minor symptoms and think they just have a regular cold, that go out into the environment, don't practice good hand hygiene, might carry it to their loved ones who are at risk, or people that are at risk in the community, and without even knowing it. So I think, I love that people are learning how to wash their hands now. I think this is a really good reminder of things that we should be doing all the time, especially during cold and flu season, like giving people space, always washing our hands, covering our cough and sneeze into a dry surface on your body, like your shoulder or your sleeve, not into your hands. If you have to blow your nose with a tissue and then wash your hands right afterwards. You also want to wash your hands before you touch your face or scratch your nose or do anything like that, because you never know what's on your hands.
So that's not super scary, but it does kind of give us, I think, a little bit more knowledge about what's happening and then how this thing does spread. And for us at Kinetic Playground and I'm gonna actually go to the gym today too, at the local gym here in Alameda. But for us, the thing that we need to make sure of is that we wipe down equipment. So that means dumbbells, barbells, like anything that anyone else's hands have been on before and after those things get used, because that's the best way to make sure that we stop transferring the virus, or could potentially be the virus, from one person to the next. So hopefully this was helpful. Hit me up if you have any questions, and thank Elizabeth for all of her
You're welcome.
lovely science nerd knowledge. And have a good day. I'll talk to you later.